we've done our first step where we've made our mold. And I know I showed it on a black pear, but I didn't need to make a second mold for this pear to finish up. This mold is going to be important as it's going to tell you how long you need to make, how many increases you need to do, that kind of thing. Most of the time you'll need at least a 12 peg or more, and I would suggest the smaller gauge, half gauge. And you're going to want to use a fluffy yarn. This is a Premier Yarn Parfait, which is very soft. You can use a Bernat Blanket yarn, which is another soft one, and it'll work great for the finished product, as you can see here. There are a few things that you're going to need. You're definitely going to need a hot glue gun, and you're going to need a fabric that holds up pretty good, a thicker faux leather, and I usually get a remnant. So here's my remnant that I use to cut out. The thicker the better for the faux leather on the bottom. You will need a needle that can go through this leather so that you can sew on like a neutral color here. You can sew the bottom of the, as you can see here, there's a bit of a, there's the seam you see there, and the ribbing actually goes in and hides it so that you don't see it. It's a real nice finishing touch, but you'll want to actually go in, and I glued the bottom as best I can with hot glue, but I also lightly glued the top on and in place so that when I go to sew on, it's solid and easy to just sew the edges together. And I kept my cut piece because this is going to tell you how long you need to make your straps here and when you can start connecting the ends here. So all you're basically wanting from your dollar flip-flops is your base, your foam base. So let me kind of explain how this goes. When it comes to your bottom here, I'm going to lay this over, and you're going to notice that I slightly cut it a little bigger. We're talking not much. It's a little bigger than the mold itself. And this is so that it can sew together and kind of connect in through here, so that when you add the ribbon, it hides it, and it looks like, you know, you did this amazing job. So what you want to do is you want to cut it a little bigger, and the great thing about this is you can just flip it over and you've got the other foot. So you'll want to cut out that first. Now we're going to put this to the side because we're not going to need it until we're ready to put everything together. Now for your loom, you need to figure out how to start with how many pegs to start with. And what I like to do is put my heel up against my pegs like this. I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright, because the design will shrink a little bit, you want to add an extra peg on either side. So you're going to be using 8 pegs for this project to start. Now, to figure out how much it needs to increase to, then you go up to here, the widest part of the bottom foam piece, and you hold it up, and I count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then you add 2 more, 10, 11 to it. So you're going to go from 8 pegs to 11, and then you'll be decreasing down. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our yarn. And I like to do an E-wrap cast on. And at this point, I'm going to move the camera. So I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to move the camera to an angle that's going to be easier to see this. Now, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to anchor that down, and I remembered I am going to be starting off with 8 stitches, okay? And so what I'm going to do is just do an E-wrap cast on, just simply just E-wrapping the pegs. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And because I like to tighten my cast on a little later, I'm going to just E-wrap my first row back. Okay, now we've gotten started. Now I've chosen to do what I call a seed stitch, okay? I'm going to tell you what the benefit of this stitch is, and I've done it all the way around because if you want something prettier, you can always add flowers to it, okay? And there's tons of flowers that I've seen online, particularly Brenda Myers has done a lot of beautiful flowers on the looms, so you should really go check that out. The reason I've done a seed stitch is I don't want a lot of stretch in one way or the other. I kind of want it, when it's stretched, it's more solid. It isn't going to give a whole lot. And so I've chosen to do a seed stitch, okay? And how that works is you're going to have to keep up with what you finish with, okay? So I'm going to start with an E-wrap, and then I'm going to purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl, E-wrap, purl. And because we finished with a purl, we're going to be starting with an E-wrap, okay? So you're going to E-wrap, and purl, E-wrap, and purl, E-wrap, and purl, and E-wrap, and purl. And so you finish with a purl, you're going to start an E-wrap again. So you continue that until you have, as you can see, it's straight on the side, and your increase is going to be here. As soon as you start to see that increase there, you're going to stop and say that the point is right there, okay? And so you're going to do however many rows. Once it stretches out, you're going to lift it up through here, and you're going to hold this at the base of the loom because it curves. And you're going to, with it stretched out, not extended, but stretched out where it covers the whole thing. When it gets to here, then you know that you're going to need to start to increase. And because I did the increase on this way, I'm going to flip it and know that I'm going to increase this way, because the stitch does look a little different from one side to the other. It has more of a seed stitch look on the other side, but you can do it the same way on both sides if you want. The foot's going to be on it anyway. But from here is where you want to get to. So as soon as you start to see that curvature right there, you'll want to stop what you're doing. And remember, it needs to show. You don't want to stretch it to where, yeah, it's there. You want to kind of stretch it out and pull it out until it's evenly over your mold up to there. So go ahead and pause the video and continue back and forth. I will say this, the wider, the bigger the loom, using the fewer pegs, the easier it's going to be to get your mold in there and see what it's doing, because it'll be laying a little flatter. I prefer a round loom, but if you have a straight loom, you can use that too. It'll help to guide you with how long and everything it needs to be without that curvature. But that's a start. So go ahead and pause the video and get that far, and then I'll show you how to increase and go from there to keep continuing to figure out how to keep that mold in line with it, so that when you lay it on top of the actual foam bit, it fits like perfectly. Okay, I have finished up my rows where it adds up. So what we want to do is we want to take our mold, and I've already done this foot, so I'm going to need to flip it around and get this side. Okay, so what I have is I stick it down to the base there, and as you can see, it fits evenly on both sides, and it goes up to that spot. Okay, so we're going to do an increase of 3 here to get us up through here. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do that, because remember we went in and we calculated we needed 11. So here's how you do an increase. You go in and you wrap the next empty peg. You just wrap it like that. Then you're going to E-wrap and purl all the way over. And then you're going to work your way back, starting with an E-wrap. And we're finishing with an E-wrap on the increased peg. Okay. Because we finished with an E-wrap, we know we're going to need to start with a purl. We're going to work our way back and back. Finished with a purl, we're going to start with the E-wrap. Okay, now we're going to increase again, so we're going to wrap the next peg, and we're going to be starting with a purl because we E-wrapped. So you're going to continue this process of you do the increase and then you work back and then all the way over, and then you do a single set back and forth, and then you increase again, and you do that process again. And then you'll notice on the mold you'll want to do a decrease over on the opposite side too. So go ahead and get yourself up to one more increase after this one. Remember, we've just increased, so we're going to go back this direction, then we're going to go back all the way to our increase peg over here. And keep in mind what you finish off with last. You're going to start with the opposite, and it should be a purl. So purl, then you're going to start with an E-wrap to go back. So then you're going to go back and forth. Then you're going to increase, and then you're going to go back and forth all the way to the increase. And that should end with a E-wrap. So you're going to start with a purl. Then you're going to go back and forth, okay, and we'll go from there. I have completed and added my 3 stitches to make it 11 like we calculated earlier, and I've done my slow increase, which, as you could see, there's a slow increase there. So now what we want to do to make sure that we are getting correct increasing and stuff, that we're ready to progress on from there, what we'll do is we will shove it up in there. And we can see that we don't have much more to go actually. So we're ready to start doing a decrease on this side. So we're right here. So we're ready to start doing a decrease on this side, and we're probably going to do a couple. And if you want to know how much decreasing you need to do, you stick the tip down at the base. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then of course we add 2, 7, 8. So we need to get back down to the original 8 that we had. So you're going to decrease on this end and stay on this side, as you can see. There is some decreasing over here, but it's mostly going to be on this side. So we finished with a E-wrap, which means we're going to start with a purl. We're going to E-wrap and purl all the way over, and we'll do our first decrease. Okay, we know we did a purl here and we did an E-wrap here because we're moving this over. Keep in mind what you did here. Okay, we just finished with a purl. We're actually going to move that over and we're going to start with a purl. Okay. Because that was an E-wrap on the previous row. So when you're decreasing, you're going to do the very thing that you finished with after you decrease. So we finished with a purl. We're going to start with a purl after that decrease. And when we're finishing with an E-wrap, now we're going to start with a purl. Okay, we're finishing with an E-wrap, which means after we decrease, we're going to start with an E-wrap. Okay, and toss both loops over. Now, we've done 2 decreases on this side, and on the next row we're going to do 1 decrease on this side, because as we saw, it does decrease here, but it decreases a little over here. And if you're not one to try to figure this out, I am doing a large women's sandal that I got at the Dollar Tree. I'm pretty sure Walmart's selling theirs for about $1. So okay, we finished with an E-wrap, which means we're going to start with an E-wrap. And we should be back down to 8 at this point. And when we finish this row, we'll check our mold and see how close we are. At this point, you might need to just do a couple more rows, and then you can bind off. You're not wanting to do anything truly dramatic here. You're just wanting to keep it nice and subtle when you decrease and increase. Okay. So here we go. Okay. I would say that, let's see, we're back to 8. Let's go ahead and do one more row and then bind off, because we're like right here. One more row and a bind off will do it. So we finish with a purl. We're going to start with an E-wrap. And that increasing and decreasing is your most challenging spot, but if you can calculate how many you need to gradually increase to and how many you need to gradually decrease to, it makes it a lot easier. So ours was from 8 to 11 to 8, and we did everything real slowly, and we had a real gradual slide to it. And if you follow that same gradual slide, no matter what size, to however many you figured you need to increase to, it will work for you. Okay. So now we're going to bind off. And you're not going to do anything special. You're just going to do a regular bind off. And you're just going to bind off all the stitches. Okay, and there you can see what you've done. Okay. Now this is the side we're going to be using, and what you're going to do is you're going to flip that over like that, and you should be able to lay it over, and there you have it. See? Flip it over, and it works up nicely. So there you have an idea of how to go about taking this mold and figuring out how to work it up using a seed stitch, and how to slowly increase and where to decrease and how far to go. It's more subtle, so but you get the idea of how to do that. And when you go to attach it to the foam base, it sews on really easily with the bottom, and so that's the reason why you just do the nice ribbon as a trim, just to hide that seam and clean it up and everything. So now that we've done that, we're going to put this aside, because I like to do all the gluing and everything all at once, and we're actually done with this mold for now. Now is for the straps, which everyone's going to probably be more curious about how we attach the straps. You'll know there's a hole we just cut from these 3 sections. We're going to be going through those again. But the thing we cut, we kept, because it's going to be the guide for how long we want our straps to be. Now for this, I used a total of, I think, 4 pegs. Okay. And it's however wide you want it. If you want it wider, make it wider. It doesn't matter. This is entirely up to you how wide you want it. I'll show you how to get it back down to the point fairly easily. So I'm pretty sure I did 4. I should have wrote it down. So what I do is I go in and I cast on 4, and then I'm going to E-wrap the row first, just to get it started, because I like to tighten that later. Okay. Now we're going to do an E-wrap purl over. Then you're going to go in and you're going to do a E-wrap purl back. And you're going to continue this process until you have it to here. So you want to continue that process until you have it to just before the point, because you're going to be decreasing, and that decreasing isn't going to take any time. It's going to be pretty fast. But what you want to do is you want to get that first one to that point. Then you're going to snip the end, and then you're going to take the next 4 over, and you're going to do the same thing down to that point there. And you'll kind of know when they're even, because you can pull them out and they'll be even. And that's when you know you'll be able to decrease, and we'll go from there. So you want to do 2 basically kind of ribbons that are this length. And then you'll go from there, and we'll go and do the point. I'll show you how to do the point. But yeah, what you'll want to do is do this 4 set for that panel to here. Then you go and do the same thing on the next 4 stitches. Do another strip there, and you'll see what I mean when we come back. Also, if you want it to be a little bit tighter and stiffer, instead of doing an E-wrap, do a flat knit instead. Okay, so if you want it to be tighter and not so loose, then I would suggest doing a flat knit, and that'll reduce the give even more. So go ahead and pause the video and complete this strip and this strip, and then I'll show you how to connect them and then work it down to a point. Okay, we have gone in and we have completed our 2 strips here, and you'll see that they're right beside each other. 4 stitches there, 4 stitches there, and then you'll just go in and take the end and measure it up, and you'll see that the point is still available. So we're going to create our point, and what we're doing is we're fixing to connect these 2 separate strips into one, which is right through here, and get it down to where you can attach it through the hole on the sole. So what you're going to do is you're going to knit and purl all the way across. Okay, at this point we're going to decrease onto the ends. I'm going to take both ends. We're going to move the outer stitches in. Okay. And because we finished with a knit, we're going to start with a knit. We're going to knit purl our way over. Okay, then we're going to move one over again, and remember we finished with a purl, so we're going to start with a purl, Okay, we finished with a knit, and we're going to decrease again, so we're going to start with a knit. And at this point, because we're just down to 2, you can just knit them. And then you're going to decrease it again, one more time. and knit the two together. Okay. So at this rate, we're just going to keep wrapping it a few times. Because we want to create a knot with it, so we're going to wrap it several times. When we think we've got it wrapped enough, which it's starting to look like it is, you're going to pull those edges out. Okay. So now we can snip the end and pull it through. Okay. And then we want to be able to snip that in half. Because I didn't cut it, I just kept going with it. Okay, and then we need to be able to tie that off. Okay. And so this is where I find a crochet hook comes in handy. Okay, so I'm gonna pull that through there and then pull it through again and knot it. I'm going to do that 2 times and then I'm going to cut it at the base. There. And so we can just cut it because it's fuzzy. You're not going to really see it all that much. You don't have to cut it right at the base. Okay. So here's where this can get interesting. So we need to be able to, because we're going to knot the end of this to the point where we can make it stick, because that's how you're going to keep it from pulling through. And not only that, the hot glue will help on the other side really attach it to the foam. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the loom at this point, and you can just put it aside. But I like to cut a couple of strips. And you kind of want a lot of support. I'm going to cut 3 strips because I'm not done with the toe area. Okay. So what I'm going to do at this point is take one of my strips that I just cut and send it through. Let's see if we can get the ends even. Okay. I'm gonna pull it through that loop to secure it. Okay. Then I'm going to start knotting. The ends, and so basically you're just going to be doing several half knots until you get a fairly thick cord. Okay, and you'll see that starting to develop. And so you just keep knotting it. And you're going to do this the same thing with the other side, because you really want these secured down when you go to attach them. You don't want to lose your shoe when you're walking because the yarn busted on you. So this half knotting makes it stronger And you're going to do it as far as you can, as far as it will allow it. And so you can see I can keep going for a pretty good amount of time. But you want to do this on you can pull it a little bit. So you want to do it on this end, and then you want to even attach it at the base here on my third one, and do the same thing. Knot it until you can't knot it anymore, and that will prep us for getting it ready to attach to the shoe. And that's where all this is going to come together. So go ahead and pause the video and attach your straps, your strands that we just cut. And I would say I cut them about a little more than a foot long, okay, just because I want to make sure I have enough, because this kind of bulkiness will go, this will go through the hole fine, but you need it to be a knot on the bottom half, okay, and that knot needs to not go through the hole that is made in the sole of the foam sole. So that's the reason why we're going in and we're knotting this. And honestly, this feels like the more time consuming part of this, but it matters. Let's go ahead and pause the video and complete that much, and then we will go about assembling our sandal together. And so that's when you're going to need to get your hot glue gun ready, and you want a high temp hot glue gun. And so then we'll start assembling it to where we start attaching everything on top, then we start attaching things on bottom, and then we sew the sides together, and then we add the ribbon. So we're very close to getting this done. Okay, I have heated up my glue gun, and now it is time to go about assembling our shoe. Now you'll see that this is the bottom because you'll see an indentation where the holes are. You see that shadow there, and this is the upper side here. There are no indentions. It's nice and smooth where those holes are. Okay, so we want to know that we have the right side, so we're going to line it up. Okay, and so I'm going to flip this over, and I'm going to take and I'm going to tack down these ends here. So that I'm not having to deal with them. Okay. So that tacks down my ends. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to take this, and so that I know that I'm not covering up my holes, I'm going to apply the glue to the actual sole itself. So I like to take and put glue around the perimeter, and up to the center. Okay, and so we're going to flip that over, and we're going to apply pressure to that glued area. And you don't have to do any massive gluing on this side because you're going to be sewing down the edges. Okay, and it's going to get tacked down really good. So just go ahead and press that in. Okay, now that we've done that, the great thing about this being knit is you can take a crochet hook. Okay, and what you want to do is you want to take your crochet hook and you want to stick it up through the shoe. Then you want to grab this and pull it in. Okay, and there you have that. You're going to do the same thing with each section. You're going to stick it up through the hole. You are going to grab that end and pull it through. Okay. You can twist it around until it's even. You're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay. Grab it and pull it through. Beautiful thing about it being knit. Okay. Now, I'm going to twist that around a little bit. Okay, what we want to do is when you looked at your original flip-flop, you'll notice there's some extra there, and we want to leave that extra there, okay? So, kind of figure out what you want there. We want about that much. So I'm going to take and put a thumb on this side and know that I want a knot to be about there. So I'm going to take and make a knot. Okay, and that looks about right. And yes, it may still go through, but what you're going to be doing is you're going to be adding quite a bit of glue on the underside and the outer side to make a flesh flat part, and because this is synthetic, it'll melt. Okay, this you're going to want to knot as snugly as you can on the ends. Okay. And you may be pulling a little bit of the strap through itself, which is fine. And that one looks like it needs a double knotting. There. Okay. Then you're going to pull it back through, like that. Okay. Now here's where you want to snip off those extra ends. You don't want to keep those. So you're going to cut them at the base. And that's okay. They're not going to unravel because you're going to glue them in. Okay. At this point, what you want to do is you want to pull out that knot a little bit. Okay. And you want to apply glue all around the base. Okay, then you're going to pull it back up. Then you're going to apply glue all around the top. And you're going to leave it to cool. But where it's soft enough, you can touch it later. So the best thing to do is to go in and do the same thing with all the other holes. Okay, so you want to apply glue around the edge. Pull down and apply glue on the top. Okay. Same thing over here. Apply around the edge. And then apply glue, on the top. Okay. It's not quite cool enough. So you're going to wait a minute, and what you're going to do after it's gotten cool enough, you're going to smash it as flat as you can, because as you'll notice, you barely notice the indentions on the bottom here. Okay. But if you feel it, you'll feel that it's hard. Okay. Well, what we're waiting for is to be able to smash it flat. Okay. And I would say it's about there. But but you don't want it too hot where you burn yourself. So there's a fine line in there when you can do that. But you may have something cool, like a piece of metal, that you can go in and you can smash it down with too. I don't think I have anything like that over here. Okay, I'm going to take a cheap pair of scissors and do this. I'm going to smash it down. Nice and snug. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. And here. Okay. Now, here is the next section of this is you want to apply this over the top of that, but you're going to apply more glue than you did for the top half, because this is the bottom half is going to be touching the ground. It's going to be getting more friction than the top when it comes to rough surfaces and everything. So I'm going to apply more glue on top of the notches, and I like to tug on them pretty heavily to make sure that they're not going to move, which I don't think that they are. And so what you want to do is you want to apply glue thoroughly over the bottom and back over those areas there. It appears I'm running out of glue. Okay. And then you're going to go in, and you'll apply more than that, but I'm going to show you how to apply that. And you kind of want to make sure you have a little bit of overflow around your edges, because you're going to need to be able to sew those on. Okay. And I do have some overflow except on the heel, which if it's still tacky, you can pick it up and move it some. Okay. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to apply a lot more glue, and even after you apply it generally like that, what you can do is you can lift it up and apply more until it's on the very edges. As I said, it's important to really get your sole locked down on the bottom, okay? And at this point, you're going to take a needle with some basic yarn, and you're going to start taking and sewing these two ends together. You're going to send the needle through and sew them together, okay? I can't finish showing you the gluing process because it's the middle of the night, and the room where my glue is, there's somebody sleeping, so I don't want to wake them, but that's generally how that's going to be done, is you're going to really glue that down, and then you're going to go in and you're going to attach these edges, as you can see, and you'll do that all the way around. You're just going to sew them together. Now the needle I have chosen to use has a real flat kind of edge and a nice point. You want that point, okay? Because the leather can be thicker. This is thinner stuff, but what you want to do is, naturally you'll thread it, is you want to send it through the very base of the sole and then up through here, okay? And those will come together with that, okay? And you want it to do that. So after you sew it all the way around, as you can see my seam here, and you will see it on the bottom more than you will the top. That's the goal, but you do see it a little on the top. Then what I do is I go from the heel, because you never notice the heel as much, I go in and I glue my ribbon, and I don't cut my ribbon before I glue. I just glue it as I go around. I hot glue it around the edges to make sure that I'm hiding my stitches. Go all the way around the edge. and then connect and cut it. Okay, then I go back through and I clean up all the holes so that when you bend it, you don't notice so much wave in the ribbon. So you go in and you really tack that ribbon down the rest of the way with hot glue. And so that is actually how you go in and you turn a dollar pair of flip-flops into house shoes, into whatever color and design you want. So feel free to go in and look at Brenda Meyer's flower patterns that you can add to this base. Again, you can make this base a lot wider. If you do, you'll need to make this strap a little shorter. But yeah, you can make this a lot wider. You can play with these straps. This is just a basic way of showing you how to turn a pair of flip-flops into house shoes. And you can go crazy with this. You can have fun with it and add flowers, add all kinds of stuff to really get it the way you want. But this is a real basic pair, and that's how you go about making flip-flops that are soft and good for house shoes in the summertime.